I want to know when, where, and why. I feel super fly talking about this universe because it's so sly. Hit the quote and sigh. Now let's talk philosophy. Bye.
Okay, so welcome to our third and final episode of the Tri-Series on Mere Christianity, the book. Today we're going to be covering the end of this book. We're still here with the same people, Miss Etheridge and Amber, and I, so let's just get right into it. First, I want to start off by talking about the good infection. The good infection is this comparison that Lewis makes between Christianity and it being, he compares it to an infection. So he basically says that the good infection that Christianity is this idea of Christianity being spread from person to person and a whole community, and it's infecting people. So whenever you're sick and you're at school and you're in a class, you usually get other people sick. So he's comparing Christianity to this infection, and he's basically saying that the good infection is Christianity spread from person to person into whole communities and is infecting people positively by changing them as a person in the way they act to be more Christ-like or morally good, which hence the name infection. So he's saying it isn't just a thing of ideas that you're adopting and following. It's something that is changing you, it's infecting you and the way you act, like a disease would. So first question is, this idea of community is a big thing in this chapter. Do you think communities have a major impact on spreading ideas or virtues, like religion, for example? So, I'll kind of answer it first. So, I think that, when I go to Evie's Bible study on Thursdays, I'll leave and I'll be okay, maybe I do want to, start getting invested in religion, and, it almost seems like it's infecting me there, but, once I'm away from them and I'm not talking about it anymore, I'm kind of oh, never mind. Do you think the sense of community is kind of a big idea for Christianity?
Yeah, so yes, for sure. The people that we hang around and that we choose to be in our community, we're either going to rise or fall with them. So if we are around people making positive choices and being connected to religion or spirituality, we're going to pursue that more than if we are around people who aren't interested in that and maybe not making negative choices, but just are, just doing their thing. If we're around people that are making negative choices, it's really hard to always resist when they are doing things that, But also it just essentially just that sense of being able to talk to other people about what you believe in your faith or your struggles helps continue on. I was thinking this morning as I was driving to school, I need to call so-and-so because I need to talk about, such and such. And essentially, and it's not like anytime I've ever done that the person that I've talked to has solved the problem. It's the more of I'm already thinking this, I feel this way, and it's an affirmation or a, yeah, I've experienced that too, and this is what I did, this is how I handled that. Where in my silo all alone, I'm not going to, ultimately I'm going to just try to push it away, or I'm going to, for me, I'm going to get in my head and analyze it way too much, but I do think that I think community is a huge thing.
And I think that's kind of how religion was created as a whole, right? Communities in different belief systems.
Well, and just the whole evangelical part of, Jesus and the whole disciples going and sharing the faith and sharing it and it spreading, that's the whole thing. And there's different churches who feel differently about it. Some are very evangelical. You must share your testimony. You must talk about your conversion and why you believe and why you follow Christ, etc. And others are more just show people who you are, and that's enough. But
yeah. I think Armstrong's almost a big example too, because I know sometimes when I'm sitting in church and he's giving his not testimony. Is it a testimony?
When he's
preaching. Yeah.
Well, that's just a homily, but a testimony if he's telling you
his experience.
his C.S. Lewis' book is his testimony.
Okay.
Because it's explaining how he came to believe in God and his faith.
Right. So like just hearing like Armstrong's words, I'm like, or like speaking to Ham about his story, it's just like, okay, well, like maybe I'll experience these things.
Yeah.
So I think community is a big thing.
And also, like, growing up in, like, what community you, like,
Yeah.
grow up in is a huge thing.
Which is another thing to think about. It's like, this wasn't one of the questions I'd written down, but I was thinking about it this morning, was when you're younger, I think they try to put the idea into your head more, because I think, I mean, obviously C.S. Lewis is an exception, but like, I think as you get older, if you weren't raised into religion, people telling you about it, just you're kind of like, what? Like Jonah was swallowed by a whale? Or
Yeah.
like, how is that? Like when you're little, you're more likely to believe it, and if you keep growing up with it, you're gonna believe it.
Yeah.
But then like as you get older, being like, now maybe that story isn't true, but just the idea of religion as a whole can sound less.
The analogy of the faith that
Right.
story tells you is, you hear it when you're younger, and then it helps you understand faith in a different way than if you're older and you're like, okay, that's just a story. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but
I was there. I'm kidding.
I saw it happen.
It's true.
but it's a fable, a myth, whatever you want, but it helps you understand the faith that you could have, that people do have.
And honestly, reading the Bible, if you if you kind of disconnect it from the idea of like a higher power, the lessons in there are honestly so like good.
Yeah.
Like treat others the way you want to be treated, not just because Jesus would do it because it's like a good thing. Like
Yeah.
like
I
they're
mean,
like
a
good
ton
lessons.
of
Like
it is
Easter.
just like a matter of like morals and like
Yeah.
what's like yeah. I mean, like it's a good thing.
And then there's some interesting parts, like the whole flood story. Every civilization has a flood story
Yeah.
that tracks to the Bible.
way which we were talking about before I even got
Yeah.
into this was like
Mhm.
comparing
Gilgamesh.
the different religions, because
Yeah.
they all are kind of like Greek mythology can be connected to,
Mhm.
which then kind of makes you wonder. It's like, okay, well, we know Greek
But-
mythology isn't a thing anymore.
But
So
if
like,
they're
do you
all
think
writing this
really
down-
far away from now, people are going to be like Christianity wasn't really that big of a thing?
But there'll be some other different type
Yeah,
of faith.
Wait, isn't it growing or is it shrinking?
Christianity? I don't know.
I think it's. Didn't Armstrong say something about it shrinking?
I think it might be.
Is that something you could look up?
Okay. Well, and then I think
And I think, well, and if you track into community, if it is shrinking, it's because fewer people are going to church, fewer people are connecting to a spirituality in that same way, because we, especially after COVID, we have less community in general than we had before.
oh wait, that really like connects to the whole community thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's why more people are lonely. That's where people are. There's a mental health crisis. Because since COVID, people haven't, to some degree, gotten back to the way they were interacting and connecting with people before. I mean, and the reality is that it's changed. It's shifted since, since I was a kid. I knew every one of my neighbors. We went over to each other's house, whatever. My kids never had a neighbor that they went over. I mean, we didn't live where we live in Midtown, there just really wasn't anybody around for them to hang out with, so all the neighbors around us were either elderly or young with no kids.
That was
That's
kind of
how
how,
mine
because I
was.
remember when I was little, I grew up in a neighborhood full of like kids, and we would all there was one house that had 6 kids, so it was
Yeah.
like every night we would go play until like late
Oh
at
my
night.
gosh, are you talking about Annabelle?
Yes.
Oh
and
my
Chrissy
gosh,
and all them.
I
And I
actually just
remember
had,
like
a flashback.
like I thought it was like every single kid had
Right.
someone to hang out with, but it really just depends on
No,
where
I
you were.
didn't
'Cause
have-
I remember
I've
I was like, what? You know how after when you were younger you'd go home from a sleepover and you didn't have a phone and you'd be like, I wonder what they do when they're at home.
Yeah.
Like I would always be like, what do you do when you're at home?
I don't know for real, but no, I didn't have any kids in my neighborhood. Anyways, this thing says that in 1990 the Americans there were 90% of Americans were Christian, and in 2020 64% of Americans were Christian.
4?
How many?
64.
Wow.
And then it says it says the U.S. Christian. A Pew Research Center study shows that as of here it is. America's Christian majority is shrinking and could dip below 50% by 27.
Well, I was watching, I know the debate just happened
Yeah.
between the Republicans, and one of them, I can't remember which one it was, but he's like really trying to like go off of just religion. Not just religion, but he was like, his main message was like, we have to bring faith back to America.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that one of the reasons that may be dropping to some degree is the fact that we have even more immigrants from different countries with different faiths than we've had in the past as well.
Yeah.
So the population has changed and shifted. So there's part of that. But I do think there's also a part of community.
Mm-hmm.
And if your community is not
As
faith-based and searching for a sense of spirituality,
Yeah,
then
because that's like, the South is really religious, but like, when I went to like California, I'm like,
yeah, when I went to
Yeah.
Aspen, it was like right after the abortion thing had happened. Everybody there was like me personally, I'm more of like a pro-choice, and so when I was in Aspen, it was like everybody was like agreeing with me, and I was so confused. They were like, is there seriously people down there that are like because my stories were full of
Oh, man.
people being like, this is good, like we're finally doing right, and it's just like the community, like I think a lot of people are basing their
I
beliefs
wouldn't even
off of
say-
their community. And I
I
remember
wouldn't
being in
even
Aspen,
say
and
around
people were
people here.
astonished. I know, I was like,
I don't tell people that I'm pro-choice, like, because I don't want them to,
'Cause
like,
I'm scared.
They will attack you.
no, literally.
Like, people think I'm, like, a bad person because I'm...
And in Aspen, people were like just blown away, and I was like, this is so different how the communities are so different.
So different.
So it was. Okay, next question. Do you have any personal experience with like the good infection by being in a community? So like my example was like Armstrong and Evie. And is there any like, and I had a little thing and it was like, ask Miss Etheridge how she's like, how are you, like, would you consider yourself a faithful person considering you've been part, like you've been in like a lot of different religions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like how do you think that affects like you being in your faith? Does that make sense?
yeah, I mean, that for sure. I feel like I'm a faithful person. I mean, faith is the foundation of everything for me, to the point that my husband's like, I know your God is going to work it all out. I hear you, but could we just talk for a minute? I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. God's got it. He's like, I know, but can we plan a little bit? So yes, faith is like the foundation, which I'll track a little bit. You're talking about having faith, teaching faith at a younger age. It's kind of like if you build it. It's in the Bible. You build your house foundation on sand, it's going to sink.
Mm-hmm.
If you build your house foundation on rock, it's going to stand. So building that foundation at a younger age makes it stronger because you have more time to experience things. But no matter what age, you can definitely rebuild a foundation
Right.
to get that faith. But I, for sure, feel like faith it's always been a part of my life. 10-ish, I think I start remembering 10, 12, kind of when we started going to church more, and my mom was searching, so she started taking us to different churches and different things. And I've lost the other part of the question. What was the other part of the question?
Like how are you transitioning just from like being like, because you've been a lot of different religions,
Yeah.
right? Like do you think you kind of take little bits from each one and apply that to your own kind of beliefs in your mind, or would
Probably,
you
for
say
sure,
you?
Yeah. And here's the thing about a lot of different religions. To me, there's a higher power that I believe in, and I know for a fact that that higher power is hears me and wants me to have an abundant, thriving life. I don't necessarily, and for me that's God and Jesus. But I don't necessarily think that, I don't, like I've already said, I don't believe that there's this burning hell where,
Right.
Even though I've been to a church or churches that talk about that and scare you to death to act right, because if not,
Yeah,
you're
that's
gonna go-
another part that is, like, just kind
Like
of
getting
strange
told
to
you're
me.
gonna go.
Like, being scared into believing something.
Right.
Like, being scared, like, I'm only believing in this because I feel like there's no other option, or else I'm gonna be burning.
For sure, yeah.
Mhm.
And so I do feel like that as a discerning, critical thinking person, I've listened to it all, I've absorbed it all, and said, okay, based on all of this, this is what I believe my God is.
Mhm.
My God is a loving guide, parent perspective who wants the best for me, which means there would be no way, no matter what I did, that there would be this eternal damnation. You know,
Right.
that's for me. That's on this life. Do I believe in the afterlife? For sure. But do I think that I don't know what happens if you're not good here? You know, but I'm truly believe that I'm doing all I can.
Right.
You know, here, and it's the choices. The hell that I would live would be here on earth for the choices I made.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like,
you said that.
I think you said that,
Yeah,
but that's like a
good.
good way of, like, I think
Yeah.
you make your own, which you said.
Yeah, and it's more about the spirituality of it for me than walking into a specific church and doing. I can, whether I'm on a hike, at the beach, in a pew, here at school, I can connect with God and worship God and believe in God. It doesn't matter. It's more about the spirituality of it.
Okay. Okay. Next, I want to speak about this toy soldier analogy that Lewis uses to represent. Have you heard of this before?
Well, but go ahead because I don't remember it all.
Uses to represent our relationship with God and kind of Christ. So, Lewis tells us to think of a child and their toy soldiers. The toy soldiers at this moment have no conscience or thoughts at all. And now let's say the soldiers are gifted with conscience and the ability to make decisions and like have free will. So the soldiers in this analogy represent like us humans and like God, like the humans God created, and the child or the owner of the soldiers represent God. So the soldiers can either choose to like kind of stay with the child who knows more and has been with them all along and has like knows what's outside of the playroom and listen to the child and obey the child, or they can go off on their own, uneducated, and disobey the child. And that basically brought them has cared for them all these years. So this kind of represents relation with God and humanity and how we have free will and get to kind of decide how to use it. So Lewis argues that humans often choose to focus on their own desires over God's will. Do you agree with this? And do you think this is a negative or positive things that humans do based on your beliefs? So like, do you think that like, first off, do you think humans kind of choose their own interests over God's, which I guess you can say it depends on the person and how faithful they are. And then do you think it's a negative or positive thing for humans that are kind of more focusing on themselves or putting themselves before God?
Well, yeah. I mean, that all just depends on the person, I guess. What was
But
the
like,
first?
do you think humans focus more on like
I think for
free,
the most part,
like their own self-interest?
most people focus more on like their own self-interest, but at the same time, like, well, their self-interest could be like following the values of like God. So I don't know.
Do you think in the event where someone kind of does think of themselves, and
Is
it's
that-
like, do you think that's a bad thing?
I don't think it is, but that's like my personal. Because
I mean, I think it goes back. I don't know if it was last time or the time before, but it's the state of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are. I mean, it goes back to the Bible of just the state of choosing. Oh, I can eat that apple.
Yeah.
What's wrong with the apple? I think that we as humans just invariably are a little wired to look out for ourselves and think about what we want versus what might be the best for us, even if it's, I mean,
Yeah.
and he's talking about a child and a toy soldier, but talk about a parent and a child, same thing. You bring a child into the world and you want the best for them, and you give advice and you say, hey, I've lived that before, and
This is what I
think
did.
that it might be, you might want to consider, but in the end of it, the child gets to choose whatever they want, whether they listen to your
Your advice.
advice or not, right? So if we make the analogy of God and spirituality and the Bible or whatever, moral choice that you believe God has for you, and it's the right thing to do, but this seems so great at the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to choose.
At the end of the day, like, we're here, like, you're living your life.
Right.
Too. Like, you're living your own life and you want it to be good. And you want to make choices that you want to make. And, like, people are going to be selfish, like, every now and then. Like,
Well,
it's, like, inevitable.
And you all know from a very recent experience that sometimes in your gut you're like, I shouldn't, but then you do, right? And then you just have the consequences of it.
Right.
And that is life. That's a tiny example of the whole view of, there is this code, this choice that would be better for you. But the reality is that there's God loving you no matter what.
And I think that also goes to the question of or not the question. Well, yeah, I guess the question of okay, well, you can always ask for mercy and grace,
Right.
And then there's the question off of that of okay, well, then
Don't
if you can
abuse
ask
that.
from when does it become abusing it?
Right. So here's the thing, in my opinion, I think that, the reality is that literally no one is ever going to be perfect. No one's ever going to live the perfect spiritual, choose God every single day at every single moment. Even to the point that the people that you look at and you think are the absolute best Christians in the world, you're like, oh gosh, there's just nothing there.
Yeah, like Mr. Armstrong.
And yes, and not saying anybody does anything bad, but we all because you said that now, I don't want to give my analogy because I'm not saying that, but say this other perfect person that we have no idea who their name is, and they gossip, right?
Yeah.
That's a sin. That's not the best thing. That's not lifting people up, those kind of things. So while you hold them, they hold themselves as, the pinnacle of spirituality and that kind of thing, they too are weak and are making choices that are not the best every single day, every single moment. So because none of us are perfect, all of us have to look at and say, I'm going to choose to do my best to do the right thing and hold to the standards that I want. But when I don't, I need to forgive myself, ask forgiveness for those I hurt, and move on. When it comes abusive is when you're not being honest
When
about
you're
whether,
actively making bad
Exactly.
decisions and you're all just
right.
It's fine.
You're not really being honest about the fact that you really are trying to make the best choices, but you were weak in that moment, or you just decided.
And I think God would know whether
Yeah.
you're abusing it or not.
And and the reality is, people too. There have been situations in the past where, and you're just analogizing it, where somebody keeps doing the same thing and going, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, actions say you're sorry,
Right.
not the words I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so if you think about God that way too, God's going to be like, okay, you said you're sorry, but the actions are what makes you sorry. Your change of actions is what shows you're sorry.
Shows you're truly sorry.
just trying at least.
Yeah. We could even apply this to personal.
We could, I feel like.
Okay.
The elephant in the room.
Moving on.
I said, do you think this is a fair comparison or not? But I feel like we already covered that with being toy soldier and child, and then child and
Yeah,
parent.
I think it is. It's funny that he would choose toy soldier and child rather than parent and child. But I guess not everybody's a parent, so
Toy
they may not
soldier with
understand
consciousness.
it. Yeah. But not everybody's a parent, so maybe this is a better analogy than what he used a family analogy earlier where it didn't fit because he's never been a parent.
Right. Okay. And do you think it's necessary for humans to have free will? There's a follow-up question on this. Do you think free will make worship and following God more genuine? So sometimes I'm okay, well, if God wants everyone to follow him, why doesn't he just make everybody follow him. And then it's like, okay, well, if there wasn't free will, then, like, do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Would it be life?
Yeah. So it's like,
And it would feel like way more constricting if.
but I mean, would you even be
Oh,
able
would
to
you
tell?
know? Yeah, I don't know.
So now we're getting into like the Matrix stuff. Right?
Yeah,
Like
oh
you
my
take a
gosh.
little red pill or a blue pill or whatever.
Oh my God.
Like-
or what's that? There was some movie we watched the other night where Emily Blunt was in it. And,
She's the blonde, right?
Oh my gosh,
well, her hair's a different color all the time. She's married to John Krasinski.
She's-
Oh,
so
yes,
hot.
yes. She was in the Quiet.
Quiet Places.
And it was like, and Matt Damon was supposed to be some big leader, and he kept running into her, and they kept trying to. It was like this God. It was an analogy to God, I'm sure, but there was this like correction facility group that was trying to make him go a different way and have her stay out of his life. And he kept finding her and getting back with her or whatever. And anyway, I wish I could remember the name of it.
Inception, The Adjustment.
The Adjustment
Bureau.
The Adjustment Bureau. Yeah. So they kept adjusting his life to get him away from her because they kept saying that if he did that, then he wouldn't ultimately become the great leader that he needed to be or whatever. And at the end, I don't want to ruin it for you, but if we're not given free will, we're just toy soldiers with no brain,
With no conscience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's just literally we're robots.
But it's like,
And then what's the point of life?
that's true.
Why would God even make that?
Wait, is fate?
Why
is,
did-
is
but
there
it's-
no such thing as like? Is it either fate or free will? Like, there's no like.
I
'Cause,
mean,
like,
I almost think that there's kind of like
Isn't
not
there
a combination of the two. I think that you make the decisions that are going to lead you to your fate. Like, I think you are destined for whatever's going to happen to you.
but you
like,
make
you
the choices
can't,
to get there.
but you make the choices to get there. So like I mean, maybe time travel and some could be a thing, but I don't. The choice you make is the choice you're going to make. It's not like there's like a different path you were going to take. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm going to go and eat those bag of chips and they're going to make me sick, then that's it.
Oh,
there
you're
is
saying,
no
like,
what
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't do it. Well,
Like,
there is
there's
no
no
that's not
alternate, like,
possible. There
universe
is
where-
no what if. I did eat the chips. That was
No
what was going to
alternate.
happen.
Yeah, like there was no like world in which we didn't go to Chicken Salad Chick. Like we went.
We went.
And it happened.
Which I know that there's like something, like I don't think I think this is literally such a just such a theory. Like, it's not even like there is like barely anything supporting it at all. But like something about quantum something, and like you can go. It's like every single thing that could happen has happened in different layers of the.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't you heard of that?
No.
Oh,
No, isn't that just like the same idea as like a multiverse? Like,
that maybe that's
but
that's
like
what it
alternate
is.
universes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That where
we
anything
are.
that could happen has happened. So like in a
Oh.
universe, like it's just an infinite amount of universes. My chair was positioned a little more this way, or like my chair was positioned a little more this way, and I turned my head this way, or like
Yeah.
me and you never knew each other,
Yeah.
or like stuff like that. But it's not supported, so it's like
Something interesting to think about though.
it is so much. Okay, so
And then like deja vu.
we have our final topic and our final two.
Wait,
questions.
did we finish the one?
About-
Where were we?
What were we
at?
saying? We were talking about
The free will and all that stuff.
yeah, I
and
think
then choosing.
I'd say we finished.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about like multiverses. We kind of got off
Right.
the
But
tangent.
can I add
Yes,
one
yes,
little
yes,
thing
yes.
about this predestination thing or whatever?
Yes.
Like faith versus destiny. What just happened when we pause is kind of a really good example of I don't know what it is, but to me it's a God thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and it's happened with Lily multiple times where she's wants, to be in this certain place, to do this certain thing with regard to ballet, and it doesn't work out. And when it comes around to it, what she gets after that is 10 times better.
Yeah.
And so it's that faith in doing the next right thing, when it doesn't work out the way you think it's going to continue to think it's going to be okay. And that's where my husband makes fun of me with it's all going to work out.
We're fine.
We're fine. And he's like, I'm like, but it always has.
I think, I really don't think it is possible for there to be nothing else.
Right.
Like, not a higher power.
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be something, like, I've talked to my grandfather about this. We talked about this a while ago, but he was like, so he kind of is non-religious. And so he was like, but he's not like an atheist or anything. And he was like, there's got to be something that's making sure all the laws of the universe are in
for
check.
the universe to be so
Like gravity
for
staying correct.
everything
and,
to
like,
happen exactly how it happened, and if something was just a little bit off, this whole thing wouldn't work.
Well,
I mean, obviously there's something.
and just our human bodies, the way
The
our
nerves,
bodies work,
like-
and how maybe we can look at it another day. But there are literally like things that are in our bodies that are in nature that are perfect symmetry. It's just amazing to me. There's just no way that it's just by
And that-
chance. But
that's
the
a
fact that we even like have a consciousness is like just
that
crazy.
is so wacky.
It's like crazy. Like, what is real, dude? I don't know. I like have access
That's
to
the idea of like souls and consciousness and different personalities have always been so crazy to me. But like,
and like where that energy, like we have like so much, like isn't there like, I was talking to Hudson and he was like, yeah, like our memory is like so at the end of our life, like it's so like I guess like strong, or like there's been so much that it's like actually like a physical like thing, and when you die, like that memory and like that energy and like your soul, like some of that like stays around. Like you can't just like you don't just disappear off the face of the earth and like everything is gone, because you've had ways to like you've like affected things, and like I don't know, it was crazy.
that's a really cool thing to think
that
about.
it's like, and like the whole thing about people, this is one thing that like kind of like the thing about like how everything has happened, and it's crazy that everything has happened. If anything was different, we wouldn't be sitting here learning calculus.
Yeah,
but like the thing is, it kind of
this moment led us to
it like
be here
goes
today.
into my like whole thing about like fate. It's like, okay, but it did happen, so it's like, does that make it like, like that, like whenever someone's like, whenever like somebody's like, okay, well like whenever you say you don't believe in Jesus, okay, well then how are you even here right now? I'm like, well, I am.
Right.
Like, I don't need to believe in something
Right.
to think that I am here.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, then again, it's like, it is all amazing. And actually, I just saw this thing on TikTok. I don't know if it's true, but apparently they're able to like, they're starting this thing of like being able to record dreams. Like you can go back and watch your dream.
Oh, wow.
That's no
That-
way.
I don't know if it's
crazy.
true though.
Dude,
Yeah.
what on earth? In 50 years, we're going to be having wings and flying. Like, what is going on?
That's what they thought. Do you remember Back to the Future where they were like, here's 2013 and
Yeah.
it was the flying cars?
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're not there yet.
Okay.
Who was it that was saying that they thought we were going to have... Was it Miss Duran? She was like, I thought we'd have flying cars by now.
That's funny.
I don't remember.
That's funny.
Okay. Finally, this is our last two questions. Finally, Lewis discusses eternal and temporary time. So basically, God is eternal time. He has no limits, and humans are part of temporary time, which means past, present, future. And so God knows the whole story and can see what's happening throughout time. When he was writing it, he was like, there's a book author and then there's the characters who are living the story page by page.
Mm-hmm.
But like the author knows all of it. So he's like comparing God and he knows what decisions people are going to make. So he then says that he knows this is a confusing topic and the mystery of it is something we are supposed to not understand. So the questions here are, do you think it's fair to say that God knows our decisions and has created us in time and everything around us, but he has no control over the decisions we make? Like, that's one thing that's always confused me is like, how...
Sorry, I was like...
Yeah. How is it that, like, God made us and he only wants the best for us, but he allows certain humans to go down this path of, like... And I know he's given us free will, but it's so confusing to me that, like...
Well, and
Or, like, whenever it's sick, a good child dies. Like, it's just the bad things that happen. Or, like, genocide. And I'm like, how does that
not,
happen
like,
to good people?
I don't know.
there's a
Like, we have, like, free will. Like, he's not, like, telling us to, like, commit genocide.
Right.
yeah.
But, yeah.
He's not telling us.
There's a whole
Like,
book called "Why Bad Things Happen to Good People."
Yeah.
I
think
think
I've
it's
heard
written
of this
by.
book.
I have it at home.
Definitely
Maybe I should do that book next.
I have it at home, so I can bring it. I've read it at least once, and I feel like it's written by somebody who's Jewish, but I could be wrong about that. But it is confusing. It is hard to think about, current events that are happening, just the day-to-day life of some horrific monster hurting a child, raping a child, those kind of things. How could God allow that? But the reality is, again, there's evil in the world that God can't stop. And
Go
ahead.
sorry.
No. Go.
I mean, all evil roots from like nobody's evil. Like it all roots from like something. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Like a murderer, like he
Like, what's that saying? There's no bad people. There's just
that. I know what you're talking about.
It's like
well, there's not bad people. There's just bad.
Choices.
No,
That
it's
might
like
be it. I don't remember it. I just
anyways, keep talking.
Well, there's light and dark in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's not like evil, but it's, there's just, again, we can make the short view choice and do something. And a murderer who has been abused and horribly treated all of their life and that kind of thing, that then goes out and does horrible things. Most murders are crimes of passion where you've got drugs and alcohol involved, which of course is yet another bad choice that then has a worse consequence kind of thing. So I don't necessarily think that it's a hard one, because it is, God can't stop us from making bad choices. He can't stop. I mean, it's, if you good versus evil, light versus dark, whatever. Did you find the quote? No. I think that it's, again, part of the human condition that we have both in us, and we're going to make we make choices that have really bad consequences sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But it is hard to think about, well, but if there's a God, then why doesn't he stop it, or it, however you want to say God is, stop it. And so it is it's just hard. But again, I always analogize it, beating it with a dead horse, I guess, with the analogy of a parent and a child. There's nothing I can do
To stop somebody.
Right.
No matter what I teach, no matter what I say, there's nothing I can do. There's, at some point, I have to let go and let them have their lives.
Right.
Because otherwise, I'm not showing them the love of you're a capable person who can make choices for yourself.
Yeah. I feel like whenever you compare it to a child and a parent, it's so much easier to understand.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you can't, like, just because I guess we could personally relate to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to add anything or no? Okay, and then our final question of Mere Christianity is, how do you interpret eternal time? And do you think this mystery is supposed to make people stronger in their faith? Like me, like, I know, like, we're not supposed to understand everything, but, like, the fact of, like, God was always just there, like, that, I physically cannot understand it.
No,
like,
I can't either.
Like,
are you
what
talking
was there
about how
before
the
God
beginning,
and what created God and what
and
created
how did
that?
God get
like,
there?
I know it's like eternal time, but like I physically can't
I
wrap my
cannot
mind around
fathom
there
that.
not being a beginning. Like, what was there
Right.
first?
Or an end, actually. Because, like, when it ends, there's not nothing.
Like
When did space become
like
a
prior
thing?
to the Big Bang, like, do you think there was like a different kind of civilization?
Well, we can talk about that when we talk about my space.
Oh,
Well, there was other stuff. Wait, was there? Wouldn't the Big Bang, like, make the whole universe?
yeah, it made everything.
Well, and then the question, and then
But what was
some,
there, like, a
some
white
would argue
screen?
that it wasn't Big Bang that made it. It was God who made it. But
Right.
did God make Big Bang?
Yeah.
Did God use Big Bang to make the universe? Those are questions that we'll never be able to
I
answer.
hate
That's
that.
what Miss Drum does. She very well, like, coincides her, like, religion and her science. Like, it, like, lives in harmony together.
Yeah.
I
I just don't think that you can ever answer that question.
I think I've slowly started to be able to come to terms of, like, I'm just not going to know everything.
No,
Like,
I
there's
can't come to
going to be
terms with that.
things
It literally,
I'm never
like,
going to understand. But it's like,
hurts
if
me.
I could die and, like, ask for one thing, it'd be, like, just to understand it all.
Maybe you will when you die.
Yeah.
That's true.
I mean, that's the thing, is that You know, right now you don't, because you only have the conscience of a human being. But when you die,
And that's, yeah.
and your soul lives on, as you were just saying, and your memory lives on, and all that stuff, maybe that's when you understand that kind of thing.
And that's when I was, on my moon dance trip, one of the girls, one of my leaders, Anna, she is like very into all of this stuff. And she was like, she's not like, it's not like conspiracies though. It's just like her own like personal ideas of what she think could happen. And she's like that was I think that's the most I've been okay with. I'm not going to understand everything. Is she's like, when you die, like in terms of human conscious, people think like you're either going to like, there might be like life after death or this,
right.
But like you could become like a conscience in the universe, like not a human
Yeah.
like not a conscience that any of us could ever understand, but like you could still become part of the universe. Like I don't think our energy is ever just completely
You have
gone.
to. Like,
I don't think it's like
go
you.
away.
I don't think you die and it's like you're asleep. Like I think that you're still a conscious somewhere else, and it might not be a human conscious where you know what's going on and you remember, but it's like a conscious of like a tree. Like, is a tree conscious?
In a Christian world, it would be an angel.
Right. It's just like, it's so whack. Like, it's so wacky to me.
I mean,
Like,
it's
just
crazy to
wanna,
me,
like-
but just birthday was Monday. Sunday night, I dreamed a dream where my mom was in it, alive, and I woke up and was like, Mom. And I haven't had a dream with her a lot, like where I thought she was alive, and I don't.
Like,
No,
I
she's
feel
been
like
dead
that's
for
like got to
13
be
years.
something like acting on. Like,
Right. I
guess
feel like that was like Mom saying, "Hey,"
Oh,
you know. So I think that's
Like, there's got to be something after this.
right. I mean, Christianity would say that you're in heaven and you're angels, you know. But I don't think we're ever going to understand. It's one of those fate things of, yes, there was a whole lot before. God's always been around. God will always be around. There's always a higher power. Don't know
Yeah.
how, why, or
Like, whenever you really think about it, like, sometimes at night when I'm really thinking about it, it's like, there's just so, like, it's just so crazy.
No, I know.
Like, all of it.
And then
It's
there's
just-
too much, like, I can't even decide what I believe because I'm just like, there's too many, like, viable solutions to, like, how this could be. And it's just, like,
sometimes I'm like,
it's brain
this is
jumbled.
not suicidal at all, but sometimes I'm just like, I want to die so I can know what there is.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
Well, I think
I'll just be like, oh, I'm excited for when I'm old, and I'm like,
yeah.
and then I'm like, what's going on?
Well, I think that, I mean, and it goes back to the saying, you know, I've been exposed to many different religions. I think that the reality is that if you are searching, you don't have to force yourself to believe a specific church's faith. You just need to have faith, and then work on figuring out how you're going to connect with God, whether that be read the Bible, whether that be read books like this where people are talking about their faith, even just listening to Christian music. You know, there's a lot of in there that's just hearing. Lauren Daigle is one of my favorites. If you've never heard,
I didn't
she's
know.
an amazing singer and has really, and I think that just the words help you then form your own thoughts about, oh, yeah, I can see that, feel that, hear that, and accept it.
So yeah, that's the end of this episode. The end of Mere
Wow.
Christianity. Thanks for listening.